Hey guys, welcome back to Home Built, and this week I'm going to be continuing to sort out this massive mess of wiring to fit my Link ECU. Alright, so first thing, before I get stuck into the wiring today, I thought I would go through, as you would have possibly seen, I made this bracket up to mount this BMW E39 M5 throttle motor to the engine. So now this is nice and secure on the engine, but I need to just finish it off and get this so that it actually actuates the throttles, the ITBs. And to do that, I talked to Rama at RHD, RHD are the ITBs I actually have here, and he sent me out a this is a little adjustable arm that is the right length for what I need to fit onto here. But I need to make it work. So that means I need to change this little ball end on this through to a nut and bolt, just an M5 nut and bolt, which is because that is what these little fittings take. Same fittings as what are used on the ITBs themselves. And I've also got a little range here of different brackets to put onto the arm so that I can get the throw just the way I want it. So let's take this motor off. Let's get this little ball end off of it and clean it all up so that I can actually start bolting this all together and getting it to function the way it's supposed to function. So those of you looking to follow down this path, you can see here I ground off the end of the ball and just punched the rest of it out. It's like a stud that was in there, so it's a pressed in piece, but the hole is the exact right size for an M5 nut and bolt. I just had to tweak the angle of this little step a little bit just to get to get everything in there nicely, but I've got the nut in there now, so that's going to be perfect to fit my little arm. I can just put the arm in there, bolt it up, and run with that. But I need to line these up and get these all together now so that the action of the motor lines up with the action of the throttle. So I just went through then, and using the different range of arms that Rama sent me, I got the right leverage so that I use the correct and full range of motion on the motor, but also I get full wide open throttle and also completely closed throttle. So obviously you don't want to not go all the way. You want to get as much flow as you can. So that's what we've done here, and it's looking really good. So now that is done, it's time to move back over to the wiring. So the last couple of sensors I'm going to actually fit. This one here is the surface temperature sensor. So it just literally bolts on. I'm going to bolt it onto the chain cover here. It would possibly be good being a little bit closer to the heads, but it's not super critical. It just gives the ECU a bit of an idea of what the temper is running, and others have used it in this spot before. And then I'm going to fit my air temp sensor. I was reading the comments when I asked the question a few weeks ago, and also did a bit more research, and I'm going to mount it in between the bell mouths here, so it's going to stick up. It gets a bit of airflow there. It's about as accurate as I'm going to get to getting it in the flow of what the actual air temp is coming into the engine. So let's mount up these two things, and yeah, we should be almost done with the sensors. All right, so I drilled the hole in the base plate of the air filter box for my air temperature sensor and painted it up. So while that's all drying, I came back and I'm just looking over and doing a final check of all the sensors on the engine. So I'll just quickly run you around the multitude of things that I actually have to wire up on this engine, but I'm pretty sure I've got my head around it now. So I have, obviously, to start with, the 12 coil packs, the 6 different injectors, but then on this side of the engine, back over here, I have the wideband oxygen sensor that wires up it through here. I have the wideband on the opposite side as well, and then moving my way through, I've got the motor wiring for the actual throttle motor itself. Then I've got the throttle position sensor wiring here. I've got the air temperature sensor wiring that goes up into, that I just drilled the holes for. Then I've also got the crank angle sensor wiring and the cam angle sensor wiring. And I think that is all of it. Oh, and the engine temperature sensor wiring. Yes, there is another one. So there are lots of different wires that I've got all connected up here. I did look at potentially trying to use the factory or oil pressure signal, and there's an oil pressure switch and there's an oil pressure sensor on this engine, but they're not compatible with the ECU, and I'm happier leaving that as it is and using the gauge as it was originally intended. So the gauges in the car will still work, the oil pressure light will come on, and the gauge should come on, at least as long as it's all working all through the car, but that's all going to be connected as factory. So I think now it's time to finally I'm going to have to go through and cut open a little bit of the loom that I put in through the sides here, just the biggest portion of it, because there's still a few more wires I need to run through there. So I'm going to cut them off, do them again, and start actually buttoning up the last of the wiring, and then hopefully I should be able to move on to start putting some connectors on the end, which should be interesting. All right, that was lots of going backwards and forwards trying to find out what I needed and what I didn't need, but I'm pretty sure I pared it down to pretty much exactly what I need now. And all of this is extra. So this is other parts for other sensors. Obviously this ECU is capable of a lot more than what I am using it for. Like this particular link ECU can do 4 separate wheel speed inputs, so you can have stability control on all 4 wheels. You can do just so much stuff that I'm not using. This is a very simple old engine compared to modern things, and really is quite light on. So I'm going to get this stuff out away from the loom now. The only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and find some of the wires that I'm not using in this and repurpose them, because I have to send some wires over to the far side over here to plug into the wideband oxygen sensor. So because this particular ECU, this is the Link Thunder ECU, it has these inputs here. So the looms I've got is loom A and loom B, but I actually need these other inputs as well for the wideband oxygen sensors. I've got the pin kits, and it's got the pins and it's got the plugs. I'm going to reuse some of the wires here that I'm not using. So I've got some different colored wires, because I just don't have, most of the wires I've got are a much thicker gauge than what this is. So it's they take up a lot of space, and they're just they're overkill for what I'm doing with these plugs. So these wires are the right gauge, the right size, and I've got extra of them. So I'm going to take some of these out and reuse them into these pins to be able to run through and go to the wideband oxygen sensors, and then I can fit my ECU and get the whole lot working, I hope. Okay, so now it gets to the fun bit, and the bit I've actually been looking forward to, believe it or not, is going through and terminating the ends of all of these wires. So the loom is now laid out over the engine. I've covered all this part at the back. All the wires are where I want them. The sleeving is all here. So now it's time to cut them back and start putting on all of the clips. Raceworks supplied all the clips for all of the injectors and the coil packs and everything. They have all of that stuff there. And I looked into using some, you can actually get a heat shrink that you can label, like put out through a label maker. I looked at it and it wouldn't fit my label maker, and I wasn't going to go and buy a new label maker just for this small part of the job, which is not overly important because it's laid out pretty simply, so it makes sense where all the wires go, but I wanted to label everything, so I'm going to go through now. I bought some clear heat shrink tubes, so I'm going to use the clear heat shrink tube and just my regular label maker and just put the labels in. I've just done a couple of test shots, and I've got to be careful. Too much heat and it will it blacks out the label maker, so some of these in the life of the engine bay may get too hot and they'll black out anyway. Time will tell, but as far as I'm concerned, as I said, it's not vitally important, but if I can do it, I'm going to do it, and it's time to start labeling and fitting up some terminals. All right, I had a couple of practices with these two injectors, and now I'm going to do this one, and I'll just talk you through it as I go through the process. Okay, so I've already done these two injectors. The plugs are on and the labels are on, and they're looking really good. I'm going to take you through the process, and I'll do this injector number 3. So first things first is my clear heat shrink tube goes over the end. Then I've got the rubber sleeve that goes onto the clip that goes on next. I went through and stupidly made all of these expandable sleeves too long, so I need to cut it back, and the easiest way I've found is to just cut it down the length. Then it's just a simple matter of clipping the ends of the wires back so that they're actually bared. You only need a tiny little bit of bared wire there, and I'm just double checking that the colours are correct for what I'm looking for. So this is injector number 3, should be the brown red wire, which is what it is. I go through and crimp the little terminals that come with the clips on. Once they're on, give them a good pull test to make sure that they're nice and secure. Definitely don't want them coming off and trying to find a fault later on, so they're nice and secure. Now, injectors don't actually have a polarity. They can be wired either way around, but it's recommended to best keep them all the same way. So I'm putting the signal wire at the front and the power wire at the back. So let's go through now and plug them in. Now I can slide up my rubber cover. You can see here I printed out my little labels, so I'm just trimming off the injector 3, wrap it around the hilt, slide my clear tubing up over the top, and clip it on. And there you can see the end result. So the clip's on, I have my label, and it's all looking nice and pretty. All right, so one side of injectors are down, so now it's time to go over the other, do the injectors, and then go through and start doing all 12 of these coil packs. It's very slow and tedious, but I like it. It's looking neat and tidy, and once I actually put some clips and stuff on this loom, it's going to sit really nicely and neatly and just look professional, which is what I was going for from the start. Okay, so the progress on this stuff is slow, to be honest, but I'm really happy with the result. So you can see the cylinders are numbered, the injectors are numbered, and it's all these clips are all in. I'm very happy with the finish of the heat shrink with the label on it, and the yeah, just the whole lot. It is quite a. If I take the plug off, yeah, like it's quite a neat looking unit. It's quite a neat looking loom, and in the future to work on it, it'll be really simple because you'll have all of the labels, you'll have everything laid out nice and neat and simple and logical, and that's what I wanted. I didn't want some just crazy mess of wires like this through the engine bay. Okay, well that is it for today. That is, I'm all done. But if you need any Porsche parts at all for any year, any models, go and check out PorschePartsByJeff.com. It's a parts comparison website. If those of you who haven't checked it out yet, you should really check it out. If you need to get anything, it is always worth shopping there first. I've used it quite a bit now, and I've heard from mates and stuff who've used it as well. And it's great. It's a great way to search all these shops with one little search term, and you can find. I've found some random stuff that I didn't realise I could get. Anyway, that's all I have for now. So if you want to help us out and watch these videos a day early, go and join us on Patreon. Links in the description. So is the link to the merch store. It is Christmas times coming up. Great Christmas ideas. Shirts, hoodies, mugs. All right, guys. See you next time.